Hey, got a few things to cover here on the economy. Kind of a few bizarre stories also going on at the same time. There was a pig's head found at the police union quarters in Montreal with a pentagram and stuff like that. Bizarre note. We have a daily dosage of terror out in Vancouver. Some mysterious package found. We have 1,800 communities, 1,836 communities or something like that, or 38 communities with drinking water advisories in Canada. So things are just going along just normal. Now, a little bit of a channel update before I get into the meat and potatoes of what this video is about. You like the little pun there? Meat and potatoes, got meat and potatoes. Oh, anyway, I, as of today, making this video, told my coworker that yes, I will be giving kind of like a 1 month kind of pre-notice notice. So yes, after April 15th, 2015, I will probably be dedicating all my time and energy and resources and every waking moment I have to this channel. With the exception of a few minutes here and there in between for other things in life. Just saying, you know. So it's not a fully done deal. Next month is the make or break month where I make the decision to do this full time, so to speak. Will you notice much of a change? I don't know. I do. Even without the internet at the house here, I still upload quite a bit. You know, I probably have some sort of YouTube record for uploading. I'm, you know, in the duration of time I've been on YouTube, you know, 5,000 videos or almost 6,000 videos since 2007. For some, that's probably not very many, but for the average person, yeah, it's a crap load, and most of them within the past 2 to 3 years. So, you know, I do believe there's value in it, and I do like doing it, and, you know, that's a bit of a gamble, sure. I did plan it out. This is not a do it on the whim type of thing. Again, 4 months of just deciding on it, and I still got another month to go to commit to it. So, like anything you do in life, you got to plan things so that you don't paint yourself in a box or in a corner, and that you can, you know, make sure you can cross your T's, dot your I's. So, I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work, well, it doesn't work, and if it works great. So anyway, let's get back into why would I do something like this. Well, if I look at what's going on in the economy here in Canada, the big hit, now there's a few things that, all this, you know, pumping of oil worldwide, when it's not really in demand, there's a few reasons why Saudi Arabia is doing this. Again, and there's a few reasons why Canada is suffering so much for this, and so is the United States. Now, job numbers came out here in Canada. Apparently we're only to the negative of 1,000 jobs countrywide. But the problem is most of the job creation wasn't in the private sector. Last year wasn't too bad. 85% of the jobs created were in the private sector. The problem is that we're starting to mirror the States too much in policy here in Canada. And basically what's happening is, I bet you watch the Canadian markets, we're going to start to lower rates down to 0% like the U.S. You know, anytime there's a little bit of... And the U.S. is never going to raise rates. If you haven't picked up by now, Janet Yellen keeps saying, oh yes, by such and such date we're going to be raising rates. And the markets react to it, and then everything goes away, and then, oh, the date comes, oh, well, we can't do it. They're never going to raise rates. They do the games, the Ponzi scheme is over. Here, the problem is we're going to lower rates, but once we lower the rates, it's very hard to put them back up again. We should just leave it the way it is. But like anything, because Canada's housing market is overinflated, because you know, loans, household debt is at an all-time high, it's kind of, you know, it signs that, you know, the economy is not as healthy as people think it is. That said, we're a long way from the troubles the Americans have, but again, because we do so much trade with them, this is where globalism really fails a nation. Saudi Arabia doesn't like the fracking industry in the States, which some people like it, some people don't. But they pump oil, and they could probably take oil down to, some say, as low as $4 a barrel. Because they've been charging so much for so long that they got so much wealth built up that they can do this. So why are they pumping all this oil when it's not needed? Well, there's two sinister things going on here. Number one, almost all the kind of anti-oil sands, yes, Kazoo, anti-oil sands, anti-pipeline stuff, anti-fracking, yeah, what do you want? Oh, gotta let down the cat. Sorry. My bad. Yeah, right there. What a false alarm. You're not a good guard cat. Sorry, my cat Gazoo kind of does that to me sometimes. It's like, ha ha ha, I made you go to the door for nothing. You're not getting any more treats. Ha ha ha. So anyway, Saudi Arabia basically funds like the Tides Foundation, those type of things, which are anti-fracking, anti-oil sands, anti-this, anti-that. Most of the people in Canada didn't realize how much of a gravy train the oil sands was for Canada. Unfortunately, I have to say the term was. Right now, our number one industry is pretty much, well, maybe not our number one industry, but one of the number one, big earners has taken a major hit. And it's so devastating that within only a few short weeks, the province of Alberta, which was the have province of the country, that was giving all kinds of, transfer payments or financial aid, however you want to look at it, but basically transfer payments to the have-not province, all of a sudden has become a have-not province. The Premier of Alberta said, look, we could lay off every public service government worker and it still wouldn't balance our budget. So how much of a hit did they actually take, right? We're talking $70-some-odd billion or something like that, which is big considering the population size. And, I mean, we're only 34 million people in Canada. We're not, so it's a big hit. But the thing is that the jobs that are being created, it's the same problem in the States. It's all these kind of part-time or low-wage jobs that, you got somebody who was making $60 an hour plus bonuses, plus this, plus that, plus everything else, all of a sudden going down to $10 an hour, $15 an hour. That's going to slow your economy. Now, is it stable? Well, that's another question that a lot of people, this is where the minimum wage thing comes in. Do I believe in a minimum wage? No, I do not believe in a minimum wage because the mom and pop shops can't hire, some kids after school and stuff like that to get their first job so they get experience and stuff like that and learn how to earn a living. Maybe not full time, but that type of thing. They can't compete with the big corporations, and then they just go out, and then now you're the only people that hire are big bulk stores and stuff like that. But half the people that now work at the bulk stores and the fast food restaurants can't afford to eat or shop there. So that's where the problem is. So you say, well, they should hike up the minimum wage, but that's the whole problem. Even if you hike up the minimum wage, the bottom line, well, if you put the wages up so high, the future is automation. This, again, is something that, they've done in Japan, they've done in, human workers are almost not needed in most sectors, particularly with manufacturing. So you could put your entire population out of work by being too efficient. This goes back, Karl Marx was worried about this, well, wasn't necessarily worried about this, but he thought about it, the industrialization, how it could put the worker out. So did Hitler, so did many people. So does that mean humans are obsolete? Well, in what paradigm? In the current job paradigm? Possibly. It's a possibility that every worker right now can be replaced by something. Most jobs that exist don't even need, particularly in the government, don't even need to be around anymore. There's no need for them. But if you get rid of, the only people that are actually earning anything in the country, it's not just those. It's going to be like, how's the best way to put it? The average person is going to be poor all their life, people like myself, whatever, But you get like people that own their own businesses. They tend to do better than the average probably government worker, in a lot of ways. But it's more work and it's a little harder and the risk is all on them, that type of thing. The government worker gets a comfortable area, the average government worker. Politicians excluded because they got a gravy train. John Baird's a perfect example. The guy basically works for 10, 11 years as a politician or whatever, and is going to get like a, pretty much, $250,000, well, maybe not $250,000, but probably $50,000 or $60,000 retirement, and he's retired at like 42, 43 years old on the taxpayer's dime, and he's going to get this till the day he dies, even though he's not a politician. You know what I mean? So like the average person is never going to get that kind of a break. But here's the thing: when we look at the oil, okay, right now it's infecting the markets, and then it's exactly that. That's the word I want to use, infecting, because the markets, okay, they're manipulated to the point where no one's ever going to know exactly, where the market's supposed to be. And the Dow Jones and all that, the TSX and NASDAQ and all that, that is not the wealth of the economy. That's just a handful of Fortune 500 companies that are being bailed out by, the too big to fail kind of crowd. Now, basically, just sucking up, they're a parasite. They're sucking up the wealth from the little people. So the thing is that the bankers always bail themselves out. The big corporations, which are in fascism, with the government, basically, government gets in, again, Canada, they should be called the fascist party, the socialist fascist party, because they are definitely not a conservative party. But there's a problem in Canada, because we're so socialistic, we have so many social programs, that if we were to actually balance our budget by laying off unneeded government workers, we'd have no economy, because we've, from the Liberal years to now, we've put so much effort into growing government that that's all there is. But for those who have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, the heart to follow, maybe for some, if they realize that if you can get around these paradigms, you won't be subjected to them. Again, the internet world is a plethora of business. I'm still looking at ways to make money online from home, and I think that's where the key is. It's not manufacturing is not necessarily the key to a strong economy. It can help, but I'm thinking there's things that people can do that will probably allow them to either work from home and not have to compete with the robots that will be replacing them in a few short years. And why would I worry about minimum wage? Well, here's the thing. Minimum wage, depending on where the wages are, most employers can probably afford $10 an hour on most people. But there's a lot that can't. So for the people that might only get paid, say, $7 an hour, like a student or something, at $7 an hour for a student is not a bad wage. They got no expenses. You know what I mean? Even $5 an hour is probably not that bad for a student. Thing is people say, well, why not 50 cents an hour of slave labor? Well, just ask yourself this simple question. Would you work for that little of a wage? You'd probably say, no, I couldn't afford to work for that little of a wage. Then you won't work for that wage. It won't matter if the person's only willing to pay 10 cents an hour, 50 cents an hour. It won't matter because no one's going to go work for that person. It's not worthwhile. That person's going to have to put the wages up to something substantial. So what I would rather see is a fair wage system, which, rather than a minimum wage, what you do is you calculate the amount an employer can actually spend on wages. Details to be worked out, but it would work something simple like this. Let's say the budget of the employer is high enough that they could hire 10 people still maintain, after all expenses paid, a 25% or 15% profit margin, where they can grow the company. You're not hurting their business. You're not hurting their bottom line. The people can get a decent wage. And on top of that, have a mandatory profit sharing, meaning even if they went as low as 1% of the profits, divided amongst all eligible employees. This way, the money can never be hoarded by the corporations. They'll always have money to expand and grow, but they can never hoard it from the people. It's not necessarily a bonus. What it is let's say your company, you've got 1,500 people working at a company, but that company brings in $12 billion a year. You take 1% after, taxes and everything, you take 1% of that and divide it amongst 1,500 people. People are going to be pretty happy. You know what I mean? They're going to be very, very happy. So that would work. It keeps the money trickling down. But right now, the way the system works is that the money isn't trickling down. It's just stagnating at the top of the wealthiest 1%, who will own, by 2016, over 50% of the world's wealth. So of course you're going to have a backlash from this. And when we see things in the economy, now right now, we're in March, you can't really, January, February, March is a dead year for the dead time of the year for the Canadian economy anyway, and anywhere there's snow, there's just not a lot of activity right now. But that said, are we that hurting? We're not in a recession per se, but the thing is the wealth is leaving the people, the jobs are leaving the people. People need to get outside the idea that the government's going to come to save them on anything. I'm thinking what you're probably going to see as the economy gets worse is a big drive underground, where everything just goes underground. And because that's what you see in third world countries, it's like, okay, well, they're going to regulate everything to the point where people are just going to start doing things under the table. Why? Because you can't compete otherwise. You can't live otherwise. So we have, in the oil industry in Alberta, I think they said the total was about 14,000 that lost their jobs. So that's a lot of people. Now in the States, it's much more than that. It's over 30,000. The numbers bonk around because they don't want to really tell you the truth. And again, something like that is going to be kind of complex to figure out exactly what's where. So we have a few problems. We have oil being pumped at a rate that basically is filling up all the oil storage to the point where are you going to put any extra new oil? And you have to ask why. Well, if you were heading towards a war, a big war, it'd be nice to have a stockpile of oil just before. And this is something I alluded to a long time ago. I said, look, before World War I, before World War II, when they saw a war on the horizon, they put resources away, getting ready for it. Yeah, it is that sinister. You say, yeah, but there's no possibility of war. Well, yeah, if you follow this channel, you know what's going on. And yes, we are in a Cold War with Russia. Plus, you got the Middle East is on fire. So with that going on, that's one possibility. The other is to destabilize Russia, but it's not working because Russia and China are basically doing deals with countries like Venezuela, which the States is trying to now destabilize. They've been trying to destabilize them for a while because of their resources. Again, it's a resource war. So all these other countries around the world are basically doing trade with each other, trying to get away from the States, the U.S. dollar, and moving towards the Chinese currency. So what's happening is you have countries like Saudi Arabia who are pumping oil for multiple agendas, but it's not working. But it's destroying. It's basically hurting our own economy. It's hurting the American economy. It's hurting the Canadian economy. Every other economy that relies on resources, the Saudis have basically, they're hurting the people that would possibly defend them in the future. The Saudi government has no friends, and I think after this oil bonanza extravaganza is kind of stabilized out, what you're probably going to see is a breakup of probably something like OPEC or something. And that's a long way off, but again, if Canada nationalizes its oil and says, okay, you know what, we're no longer going to buy oil from Saudi Arabia or any other country like that, and yeah, we'll take a bit of a hit on the cost directly for oil here and just employ the people here. But that, I doubt, would happen because we're a globalistic country now. Meaning, it's more important that we send jobs to India, Pakistan, China, and even probably Saudi Arabia than it is to keep the people here working. Yes, kazoo. And because of that, we're going to take the loss. And when we take the loss, I think it'll be a desperation move once people are no longer getting transfer payments from other provinces, and they're breathing down the government's neck, saying, "Hey, why can't you afford this program? Why can't you afford that program?" Well, we live outside our means to begin with. But I think a lot of people are going to wake up to the idea that, hey, you know what, asking government to fix the problem when there's a problem in the first place is kind of a bad idea. So what we need is the people to kind of say, hey, you know what, we're going to nationalize that oil. We don't care about the export. Yeah, the export helps us out, sure. But if we're going to cut our own throats just to play nice with some foreign country, it's completely pointless. The United States could be completely energy efficient, but because of they're allowing basically other countries to undercut their labor. And we do this with China and everything. We've sent all our jobs there. The reason why China is so powerful is because we built them. We gave them all our jobs. And now that we've given them all our jobs, that's not bad enough. Now we have to do a thing called insourcing, where you take people from the third world or whatever, lay off all the people here, and hire people at half the cost or whatever. So that's what's going on. And I think people are catching on to it. But it doesn't matter. Like the way they're looking at it is, well, if we can cut the cost of doing business, we'll get more people hired. But it doesn't really work like that. Because when you cut the cost to the point where people are living off of fumes, the economy can't expand. In fact, you have to pay people more. So what I think they should be doing, and what they should do, is say, okay, well, we'll pay people fairly well, within reason, at the oil industry and stuff like that. And we'll hire twice as many people, so they might not get the $60 an hour, but maybe we'll hire them for $20 an hour. $20 an hour is not bad, and then, if they're benefits or whatever. So you hire people for $20 an hour, they're going to go out and spend their money, $20 an hour. If you can't make a living on $20 an hour, it's your spending habits are out of whack. I mean, I do it on 10, so. I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to make any more than that, but what I'm saying is if we nationalized it, then we don't have to worry if Saudi Arabia pumps a gazillion barrels of oil a day. It won't matter, because what will end up happening is we're going to use our own products, refine it, and the other thing is rather than build pipelines for export, like the Keystone Pipeline, don't waste the money on that. Build refineries. You get the oil out of your own country. You refine it in your own country. You don't have to ship it all over the place. What you're going to lose possibly in savings from getting a better deal from a foreign country, you're making it in your own country. You're refining it in your own country, and you're only using what you need. And yeah, if you want to export a little, no problem. but everything is here. Anything you get rid of overseas or to the south of us is just basically icing on the cake. But the whole point is they don't need it to the south. Some stuff they do, but a lot of stuff they don't. Like our natural gas, 80% of our natural gas goes to the States, and that's okay because we don't use that much. So if we have extra, sure, let's export it. But let's take care of here first. Let's not import anything to undercut our own labor. But unfortunately, with the globalist government, it's not just the Harper government. The Liberals were the same. The NDP will be even worse because they'll just give it all to the UN. Just listen to Moncler talk and you'll know what's going on. So that's what's kind of going on there. So the oil is basically a bit of a wild card to a point, but it is kind of predictable that they're going to drive it as low. At $45 a barrel, yes, Canada's oil sands are pretty much ruined now. They're it might take years to bounce back from that. So the boom that was and when they hire back, I can guarantee you, and if you're an oil worker, you're probably going to know this. You're probably not going to get a call back. Why? Because you were too expensive. You're going to find all these new Canadians coming in. Again, we import 250,000 people a year. A lot of these people are coming in to replace jobs. Of course, the Liberals and all that say, "Oh no, that's just a fallacy." We've seen it with the fast food industry. You don't think if they're going to undercut labor at a fast food industry out west, that's peanuts. Okay, you're telling me that an oil worker making a couple of $100 an hour, or $60, $80 an hour, whatever he makes, or $30 an hour, or even $20 an hour, or 18, that they're not, if they could bring in a guy from Pakistan or wherever to for $8 an hour, they're not going to do it. Of course they're doing it. That's exactly what they're going to do. And the corporations have been doing this. It's only when they get caught that they backtrack from it. So just watch for all these people getting laid off, 14,000 people laid off. You'll probably see 60,000 people working in the end. But we're not really gaining anything. Why? Because we're going to import these people. So we've just inflated the job market that now it's even harder to get a good job. And the wealth isn't going to be distributed because these people are not going to spend money on big ticket items, especially when you have a consumer-based economy. It really makes no sense why we need to inflate our economy. So what we need to do is actually cut back on immigration, number one. Canada, just infrastructurally wise, cannot, job-wise, medical-wise, we just can't import that many people. Allow the people that are working here to make good wages, and from there, use the resources in our country for us first. Never mind, okay, yeah, those guys can sell China can always undercut your labor. Saudi Arabia can always undercut your labor. But the question comes to this. Yes, you can look at it competitive, but everyday low prices, racing your dollar to the bottom will get you there, and that's where we are at this point in history. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens, but my thing is to wait for the politicians to do the right thing. No, they got this idea in their head that they can undercut the labor and people will prosper, and I don't know how a weak dollar is not good for Canada. It might be okay for exports, but to rely on imports and exports or a consumer-based economy for the wealth of an economy is kind of ridiculous when you really think about it. You need sustainability. People need to be paid well. You need to keep the money flowing, the velocity of money flowing through your, and you can't do it when the corporations are hogging it all, and you're definitely not going to do it when you have people that are paid too little. And a minimum wage, look, every time we put up the minimum wage, it doesn't work. So that's not the answer. The answer is spreading the wealth, not through taxation, lower taxation, but increase profit sharing. And that way the big corporations have to share the wealth with the little people. It's a win-win situation for everybody. Lower taxes, higher profit sharing, higher ability goes through the roof, and everybody's working low, and then you can start shrinking your government. That's my theory. I'm pretty sure it'll work. Keep it simple. It will work. But anyway, I guess I'll leave it at that. So a bit of a babble video about the oil, but that's where we're at. So anyway, if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Thank you very much for all your support, for those who have. Rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. That's what it's, use those comments. That's what they're there for. Maybe you agree with me. Maybe you disagree with me. That's fine. Be true to yourself. Be true to others. Always. Do the right thing. Have yourselves a great day, eh? Hey, Darren camera. Come on. Can't shut off my camera. G'day, hi, and welcome. Okay, got a few things to cover here on the economy. There were kind of a few bizarre stories also going on at the same time. There was a pig's head found at the police union quarters in Montreal with a pentagram and stuff like that. Bizarre note. We have a daily dosage of terror out in Vancouver. Some mysterious package found. We have 1,800 communities, 1,836 communities or something like that, or 38 communities with drinking water advisories in Canada. So things are just going along just normal. Now, a little bit of a channel update before I get into the meat and potatoes of what this video is about. You like the little pun there? Meat and potatoes, got meat and potatoes. I don't know. I, as of today, making this video, told my coworker that yes, I will be giving kind of like a 1 month kind of pre-notice notice. So yes, after April 15th, 2015, I will probably be dedicating all my time and energy and resources and every waking moment I have to this channel, with the exception of a few minutes here and there in between for other things in life. Just saying, you know. So it's not a fully done deal. Next month is the make or break month where I make the decision to do this full time, so to speak. Will you notice much of a change? I don't know. I do. Even without the internet at the house here, I still upload quite a bit. You know, I probably have some sort of YouTube record for uploading. I'm, you know, in the duration of time I've been on YouTube, you know, 5,000 videos or almost 6,000 videos since 2007. For some, that's probably not very many, but for the average person, yeah, it's a crap load, and most of them within the past 2 to 3 years. So, you know, I do believe there's value in it, and I do like doing it, and, you know, I'm going to take a bit of a gamble, sure. I did plan it out. This is not a do it on the whim type of thing. Again, 4 months of just deciding on it, and I still got another month to go to commit to it. So, like anything you do in life, you got to plan things so that you don't paint yourself in a box or in a corner, and that you can, you know, make sure you can cross your T's, dot your I's. So, I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work, well, it doesn't work, and if it works great. So anyway, let's get back into why would I do something like this? Well, if I look at what's going on in the economy here in Canada, the big hit, now there's a few things that, all this, you know, pumping of oil worldwide, when it's not really in demand, there's a few reasons why Saudi Arabia is doing this. Again, and there's a few reasons why Canada is suffering so much for this, and so is the United States. Now, job numbers came out here in Canada. Apparently we're only to the negative of 1,000 jobs countrywide. But the problem is most of the job creation wasn't in the private sector. Last year wasn't too bad. 85% of the jobs created were in the private sector. The problem is that we're starting to mirror the States too much in policy here in Canada. And basically what's happening is, I bet you watch the Canadian markets, we're going to start to lower rates down to 0% like the U.S. You know, anytime there's a little bit of... And the U.S. is never going to raise rates. If you haven't picked up by now, Janet Yellen keeps saying, oh yes, by such and such date we're going to be raising rates. And the markets react to it, and then everything goes away, and then, oh, the date